name suggests, an experience. Now, the new brand that is going to eventually morph from this is Digital and Technology Week. That is very important to keep in mind because social media has now become an official marketing tool which is moving forward into the digital space. To say that it is just social media would be doing it a disservice. I'd just like to take a second here to mention our sponsors. Of course, number one for today, we've got, as you can see, the banner behind me, Safaricom. So a massive round of applause for Safaricom, please. We also have the Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs. We've got Citizen Digital under Royal Media Services. Turn Left Media. We've got Cellulant, Wowzy, Nestle, EABL, Kennick, Oracle, Meltwater, Institute of Human Resource Management, or IHRM, Kenya Institute of Bankers, and Digital Media Awards. Remember the hashtags are hashtag SMW Nairobi or hashtag Digital and Technology Week. Now, it is an honor to be part of such a top-notch event because, as we know, this is where the captains of industry come together and share ideas. We're also going to hear lots of insights on the best practices moving forward for businesses in the digital space. And the theme, as you know, is re-imaging digital and technology for a better tomorrow. So that is what we're going to be exploring throughout this week, and we do hope that everyone enjoys it. Now, I do believe we have a speaker that's going to be coming up for the keynote speech since we are done with the initial pleasantries. And I'd like to invite up from Safaricom, Mr. Shaka Kwach, the Head of Enterprise Business Solutions. Would you please give him a warm welcome? Welcome, sir.
Good morning, everyone. CAS, Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs, Honorable Maureen Baka, distinguished guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So first of all, let me apologize on behalf of Mr. Chris Sananu, our Chief Enterprise Business Officer who was supposed to be here today, who had to attend to a personal matter. So when I came here, I was expecting to participate like all of you, and I was given the task to step up and deliver the keynote address on his behalf. So I apologize on his behalf. So here goes. I am indeed honored to be here today as we commence on the Digital and Technology Week, championing technology and the role it plays in our current world. This year's theme is reinvention, reimagining digital and technology for a better tomorrow. I believe this discussion could not have happened at a better time. In the wake of COVID-19, it became extremely clear how essential it is to have open and accessible communication channels and technology that serve the human race at all times. We realize that times and seasons may change without warning. It is therefore paramount that we do not stop inventing and innovating. Ladies and gentlemen, it is because of this understanding that businesses like ours in the technology space continue to play a key role in rebuilding through inclusive business models and partnerships that scale up innovations and enable digital lifestyles. With this new mindset, we also embarked on a new business strategy that will transform our company, Safaricom, into a purpose-led technology company by 2025. This new strategy is based on looking back over the past successes and recognizing that we need to be future ready and continue to grow and evolve while meeting. This will see us continue driving innovations in ecosystems such as health, education, agriculture, financial services, and enabling SMEs using technology. We can only achieve this if we combine technology and innovative thinking across every aspect of our business and use technology to transform the lives of our customers and communities. Furthermore, COVID-19 has demonstrated that there is an opportunity to leverage digital technology to address the most pressing challenges in society. We believe that with the right technology, Africa can significantly enhance the quality of life of its people. We believe as a company, we're in a good position to pivot ourselves, indeed, the industry into the next phase of growth where technology will take the lead. We also want to leverage our long track record of technological innovation to promote financial inclusion and drive enhanced access to opportunities for our retail and enterprise customers. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key contributors to reinvention is the internet. The quality of our internet is becoming a major contributor to how we innovate. Ideas are brought to life, and as such, how they are implemented. It is therefore not just important to have internet access, but also to have fast and reliable quality internet. As Safaricom, our mobile network now ensures over 22 million Kenyans are connected to the internet. 4G, 3G, and 2G population coverage now stands at 96, 90, and 97% respectively. Our fiber footprint, which is currently at over 10,000 kilometers, has so far connected over 153,000 homes and 44,000 businesses to high-speed internet. This is not all. Talking of quality internet, we recently launched our 5G network in Kenya. 5G offers much faster data download and upload speeds that ultimately ease network congestion. The 5G network heralds the era of intelligent connectivity and will be a key driver of our enterprise strategy as we enable digital lifestyles of Kenyans. What's more, 5G era networks are expected to support the massive rollout of intelligent IoT connections for a multitude of scenarios and provide an enhanced platform to support widespread adoption of critical services. 5G could, for example, enable remote patient diagnostics and monitoring, access to education, fast detections of natural disasters, and support of smart city infrastructure, among other things. 5G will also potentially accelerate the digitization and automation of industrial practices and processes, including supporting Fourth Industrial Revolution goals. Fast internet also opens up fresh opportunities for businesses by enabling them to leverage online marketplaces and tap into new customers and operating models.
We apologize, ladies and gentlemen. That power surge must have caused a few more technical issues than we had expected. However, at this particular moment, I'm just going to go ahead and begin to encourage the panel to come up on stage, and they will be mic'd up. But as they are coming up, let's remember that life is a game of numbers. And the numbers that are played here are extremely, extremely important. This particular conference takes place in 28 cities around the world and 6 continents. Just to put into perspective for you how big it is, especially for Nairobi. In Africa, Nairobi are ranked number 2 after Lagos for the Social Media Week. This has a digital covering of over 600 million professionals around the world. This is definitely a conference that once you take part in or participate in, you are assured that you begin to find the upper echelon of digital marketing going forward as the new normal has begun to show. Ladies and gentlemen, the Social Media Week Nairobi 2021 is underway, and you are part of it. You are part of a revolutionary experience that is going to change the face of the digital space forever. Of course, as I said, captains of industry are here and are going to be sharing ideas, ideologies, best practices going forward. This is something that I would encourage you to encourage other people to take part in or to tune into, because we do have a live stream that I will be giving details about a little later. But right now, let's just get ready to invite up, of course, Mr. Moses Kemibaro and the rest of the panel for the first panel discussion, which is going to be taking place around, of course, the topic, scaling your business with digital payments. And I expect that the name M-Pesa from Safaricom is definitely going to come up here, because it is the most popular, again, based on numbers, which is fact. So right now, Mr. Kemibaro, if you are ready, I'd like to welcome you up. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman, CEO and founder of .Savvy. Welcome. I apologize.
From South Africa. Welcome, Tifo. And he's the Director of Diversity and Equity and Inclusion at Meltwater. And then also Joseph Onjoy from our sponsors, Safaricom, who's the Head of Department for Large Enterprises and Public Sales. Unfortunately, we'll be missing our representative from the Ministry of ICT today, but we'll be able to proceed with our current panel. Sifo, can you hear us? We can see you. Is your mic on? Could we have a microphone that can... Can you check if it's working? I think we're still struggling to hear you. Can you hear us? Great. So, I think, given that we have a nice representation of ladies here today, I think we stick with the tradition of ladies first. And I'd like to start off with you, Waidara. Thank you so much for being on the panel. I hope I'm audible. Can you all hear me? Okay, so Waidara, EABL and Diageo has been at the very forefront of evolving its business model in Kenya to leverage digital channels and innovations. And in order to do so, you had to also change things according to the lockdown we had, and also the model in terms of how you do business. Could you share with us what some of these transitions have been and how you were able to transform your business model at EABL in the past 20 months or so?
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and I'm really happy to be here. And thank you, Moses, for inviting me to this panel. There's a lot that has happened at EABL over the last almost 2 years in terms of digital transformation. One of the phrases I like to quote is from Think with Google, is solve for what matters today to be ready for tomorrow. And that's exactly the situation we were in when the pandemic hit. So I'll give you one example. Obviously, as you all know, the bars were closed on March 16, 2020. Nobody saw that coming. And we always had this strategy of what we call route to market. So now we had to change it and think about route to consumer. Because now the consumer is anywhere, right? So one of the things we did very quickly is we had a call center, which was really a customer service call center. And we changed the call center into a sales center, a telesales center. Because what happened is, apologies. Okay, so we converted the customer service center into a telesales center so that our distributors, who are really at the forefront of our route to consumer, were able to still connect now directly to consumers. So now we had a telecom D2C channel almost overnight, which was fantastic. But then as we continued, and you remember that time earlier on, we didn't know how long this thing, we thought it was a 3-week thing, right? But as the pandemic continued, we realized we needed to evolve our telecenter further. And so we launched a direct-to-consumer platform called Party Central, where now we brought on all our distributors and said, now you can sell directly to consumers who are at home. And the only reason we're able, I think we launched Party Central within a matter of weeks, yeah? And the only reason we're able to do that is because we had actually been planning for this, years before. And I remember the first time we were thinking about this channel, so we called the design thinking workshop with, cross-functional team. We brought the supply guys, the marketing, the sales guys, even the finance guys, our agencies into one room. And we said we want to think of a consumer-centric way to reach our consumers using e-commerce. And the design thinking workshop was very poorly attended because everyone was like, what is Waidara thinking about? This is in early 2019. Because they're like, no, our business is very today focused. that time, you know, I was thinking, this is going to be the future. As much as it was attended by, okay, not quantity, but quality input, we actually built the prototypes of how we wanted our D2C platform to look like. And then sort of like shelved it away to my PowerPoint. And then when COVID hit, we went looking for that presentation and that prototype and said, now let's launch this, let's execute this. And that is why we were ready in that sense. Yeah.
And what was the outcome of that? So you launched the system, it goes live, what happened next?
So many things happened. As you know, the consumers moved to at-home consumption. More of your A, B, C1, C2 consumers moved to at-home consumption, or what we're calling third and fourth spaces. You know, we quickly commissioned research to understand how the consumer behavior has changed, what are their habits, and because of that, we're able to now leverage this. And even with our other e-commerce partners, so Jumia, Global, Oats and Foods, everybody, we rallied everyone together and said, let's ensure we can connect with our consumers when they need to order our products. The contribution of e-commerce prior to COVID was 0.1%, 0.0 something to the business, and now it's over 1%, getting to, and our ambition is to get to 5%, which is quite big. If you think about 5% of our total sales attributed from e-commerce, whereas pre-pandemic, about 90% of our sales was from inbound. Okay, so it's quite, I think it's quite an ambitious move we're saying in terms of the contribution.
Can you hear me now? So ultimately what you're saying is that, you know, COVID will be the trigger that made the organization say, look, we really need to go change what we're doing in business and start meeting the customer where they are.
Yeah. Moses, actually, one of our EVL directors, Oreo Kolo, I'm sure many of you know her, Oreo Kolo, she said your COVID consumer is actually a future consumer. So that's what COVID, it just brought that consumer now closer, nearer today. So our rallying call was how we're going to emerge stronger from COVID. And one of our leadership standards is around shaping the future. In fact, my title is Media Futures. I'm supposed to be thinking about the future every day. So one of our leadership standards is shaping the future. And with that, I was thinking about what's not just now, next, but what's beyond.
Thank you so much. So at this point, I'll move over to Faith Nkata, who's the country manager for Cellular. Cellular is a company we know well. If you need to know, I was in the room when it was being conceived many, many years ago, in a different company, in a different life. And it was actually one of those classic Silicon Valley ones where somebody drew something on a napkin. And then we were talking about mobile phones and things being downloaded. And that guys were still in the desktop era. And we were like, what is this guy talking about? And you know, lo and behold, I think we had a massive round a few years ago. Companies growing, I love the new branding. And yeah, we're happy to see that we have a lady in charge. But going forward, yes, I think Cellular is sort of at the heart of e-commerce, at the heart of payments, at the heart of a lot of things that happen in the digital ecosystem. And I'm just curious to understand, you know, in the context of COVID, in the context of the future, what sort of offerings are coming here? What have you seen? You're sort of sitting in the middle of what, you know, that's the transition for business and commerce. What can you tell us? What's the story from the Cellular perspective in terms of transformation as a business, but also where your customers are concerned and what you're seeing as the trends and things going forward? So please share.
Wow, I'm honored that you are part of the Soviet Union.
I was
so
observing.
To speak. It's interesting. I was a banker at that time, when Cellulant got into the digital payment space, and I was seated on the other side of the table when Cellulant walked in and told us that they'll help us connect what is on your mobile wallet with what is on the bank. And we were like, that's madness. It doesn't make sense. Though later, of course, we came to, but at that point, at first, we thought, this is madness. And I keep saying that I think Cellulant was ahead of its time in those days, and I think even now, I dare say even now. And it's interesting you ask, because I joined Cellulant during the COVID season, and you worry that numbers will go down. We were speaking with Wanjohi, you just worry numbers will go down with the heat of COVID. But we've seen such a shift. I think we've garnered this title of being the leading Pan-African payments company, even more so during COVID. Because of the sort of solutions that we already had under our belt and the ones that we were able to come up with. So if I'll share a few numbers, right now as we speak, what we call GPV, like the gross processed value, 2019, I think we were at around 6 million or thereabouts, $6 million. We've seen that grow 40-50% to around 8-9 million during COVID. The 6 million was around 2019. Now we're looking at around in 2020, that was like 50% growth. 2021, we'll probably see 80% growth. And that just shows that COVID has come with just a great shift in how payments are done, how consumers want to pay, and how merchants want to collect, so to speak. And I know when we first started off, and our legacy business is, of course, banks, but how the market has changed has forced us to also shift. So now we are getting into the airline space. I'm looking at Party Central because I want to offer them a solid checkout system. I'm looking at the Glovers and the Ubers and Bolts, and I want to take care of payments to even the drivers, and the boda guys, how are they being paid, and aspects like that. So it's no longer just the generic payments as we knew it. Right now, we've partnered with around 35 mobile network operators in Africa, and we're doing this because one of the biggest issues that we've seen in Africa is fragmentation. You're a merchant, I have my little shop somewhere, I have Tigo, I have Airtel Money, I have Safaricom, but how can we bring all this together to just ensure that if I walk into a shop, there's one platform I get into and I'm able to pay. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about doing. When you think about settlement and reconciliation, another big issue in Africa, and we are smack in the middle of it. I keep showing off, Wanjohi is my friend, so I guess I can say it. In some other parts of Africa, apart from Kenya, really, we could almost say we are the Safaricom, more or less, but we're getting there, and it's just being able to just offer that sort of solution that reduces friction when it comes to payment, and not just to the middle class or middle upper, to that person who's moving, $1, $100, to the person moving $10,000. How do you make sure you get real-time settlement? And that has been key for us, And as I close, I think it's important to mention that when COVID happened, we saw a dip fast. And I think so many businesses did, as everyone was figuring it out. She even mentioned it. And then slowly, we started seeing alternative payment methods come up. Then we started seeing businesses opening up in different ways. We had banks knocking our doors and saying our customers are asking for checkout solutions. Our customers are asking for proximity payments. Our customers are asking to be set up online, and the bank is like, we can't do this. Can you support us to do this? And so we are proud to say that a lot of the banks that you see out there, a lot of the digital solutions that you're seeing, we are powering them from behind. And we are proud to do that, and we hope we can be able to do more so that whatever need there is in the market, we can be able to take care of it from the back. And so that's who we are as Cellulant, and that's where we are going in terms of the digital payment space. And I think it's exciting, and we hope we can be able to see more things as we support in that ecosystem.
That's brilliant. I'm so glad to hear the progression and the evolution, and the fact that you're like Safaricom, looking at yourselves as an ecosystem that is connecting everyone to everything. So that's brilliant. So we get to now to Carl and Wanyama. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure. I don't think I've seen you since pre-COVID. It's been a long time, even though we sit on a committee at MSK. But Caroline, thank you so much. Real Media Services, what can I say? You guys have the numbers. The other day I was looking at some research, and it was showing, I think, consumption around the vernaculars. And let's just say the numbers were incredible. I mean, it made what we thought were the huge media companies in Nairobi look small. And it just shows that the consumption really, especially around vernacular content, is incredible. But of course, as a business you've been involving, I think you are groundbreaking in that context. You're breaking new ground with the launch of Capital Digital, which I hope you'll share more on. Oh my God, how did I say that? So sorry. Citizen Digital. It's embedded in my head, I think. I think Wadara knows why. We were doing a podcast the other day, that's why. But sorry, so sorry about that, my apologies. But as Real Media Services, I think there's also the View Sasa offering that you've had for a while, which is also incredibly popular as a streaming platform. So I'd like you to share maybe a little bit more about, again, Citizen Digital, View Sasa, the evolution of the media business, as it were, and where we're going in the next 2 to 5 years as we transform and look at a better future.
Thank you very much, Moses, and nice to see everybody partaking in such a vibrant conversation discussing our future, all our future in whatever business area we're in. Digital is indeed, we need to define it and keep reimagining it as we go. As you say, Moses, many players in our space, in the media industry, will attest to the fact that 10, 12 years ago, there was an obituary written for all of us, that there would be the end, the extinction of TV and radio as we know it. And I'm sure those who own newspaper media would have a similar story to tell. But it's been interesting because the paradox is we've continued to grow. These traditional platforms, if I may refer to them, have continued to grow. And so we wondered, when does this shift suddenly happen or take over? And if at all it's happening subliminally as we go along, at what point do we immerse ourselves into the new space, and what sort of transition would that journey take? And so we continued to observe, do a lot of observation, carry out a lot of market research, look at consumer trends, look at what has been happening in the local and international spaces to see where to begin our first bite on this huge animal. And as we studied the market, I think our biggest learning has been that the reason we've continued to grow on our traditional media is because consumers did not leave us, if I may say so. Consumers continued to enjoy and take up our content, but on new and different platforms. With the rise of YouTube and there's several other streaming options, we saw new audiences uptake in our radio content. We saw new audiences exploring onto what we offer on our traditional media on TV. And so our growth into that space will take that sort of journey where we will not suddenly die, but we will have to invest, as we are doing now, a lot more into the digital futures, as we may say. Of interest to us also, if I may mention, as the youth demographic, we've seen a lot of growth in that area because of the growth of the digital platforms. Because younger people are now able to access our content, while maybe we were positioned for an older demographic or a traditional demographic, if I may use those words. So growth will continue happening on both of those functions. 4 years ago or so, we launched our View Sasa app, which is our subscription VOD platform. So for a daily or monthly or weekly fee, you're able to access content and entertainment, vernacular variety of offering on View Sasa. And it's been interesting, the journey on the launch of that product. So many learnings, we've done, the numbers on downloads have been amazing. Not where we wanted to be, but it's a journey of learning to see that our consumers are getting to appreciate the concept of having to pay for content, having to pay a small fee to access content. Another interesting learning on the launch of View Sasa has been the fact that the best performing content on View Sasa has been the best performing content on our traditional media. So there's a journey we'll have to take in understanding how to leverage on that even as we enter into this new space.
May I interject? Are you happy to share any statistics or numbers, or is that sacred content?
I could share broadly. I think we have over 1.5 million downloads on Viusasa, with over 400,000 engaged, what do I call them?
The monthly actives.
The monthly actives.
MAUs, okay.
The monthly
wow, that's
actives.
Impressive.
It is. Yeah, and so a month ago, we launched Citizen Digital, like you referred to. And why we launched Citizen Digital was because of the realization that Viusasa was positioned more as more of an entertainment and programming platform. So we realized that our news legacy, which we enjoy a lot of dominance on traditional media, needed to translate onto the digital space on its own, with its own identity. Hence the journey into Citizen Digital as a product being born. So it took over 11 months of planning and research, engaging the younger demographic to just try and understand what would make them find news attractive and what sort of news they would want to consume on these platforms. So again, a lot of learning. Well, on traditional media, we were used to updating you on current affairs. The youth on the digital platforms want human interest stories. They want to hear about some twins somewhere. So I have to refer to those sort of, stories that will bring them, on board. So our strategy is shifting. We are learning a lot on the go. Citizen Digital also is providing an opportunity to access news on the go, because gone are the days when you would be waiting for your 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock bulletins, to be updated on what's going on. We've seen the growth of Twitter, the growth of SMS alerts, and so it's allowing us to play actively into that space. And the app has done well. Within a month of its launch, I think when you looked at the Play Store statistics under the news and magazines, from being nowhere, we are now at the top, sitting at the top as
Wow.
Most, used
On
and
the Play Store
downloaded app.
in Kenya?
Yes, in Kenya.
Wow.
So the journey continues. I think all I can say is that we are taking observatory learning. We want to see, we want to hear, and then define our strategy as we go forward.
Great. I love data, by the way. I'm a complete data freak, and when you share those numbers, it's pure gold in terms of just understanding, what does it actually mean in sort of tangible terms. And that really, I think, is a wonderful segue to our friend and fellow panelist who's joining us from South Africa. Good morning, Sifo. Thank you for being here today. You are sitting at the heart of data at Meltwater, a company that I admire very much in terms of, sharing insights and platforms that show us what's actually happening within the digital space. And I'm curious to understand from your perspective, Sifo, the disruption and the changes that we've seen in the last 20 months. And on this basis, at a macro and micro level, what are you guys seeing at Meltwater? What is the data telling us, and what does it mean both at a consumer perspective and possibly at a business level, and how will this shape a better tomorrow for us? Sifo, the floor is yours. Is your microphone on? Can we patch him in, please?
The challenges of working remotely, but I'm hoping that everyone can hear me.
Can we increase the volume?
Hello?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. It would have been great to be there personally, but obviously we need to adjust to the new normal. And I guess from my end, Moses, and as well, good morning to the rest of the panel. I'll keep some of my stats for tomorrow's masterclass, and I'll just touch on a few trending themes and topics that are of interest. And I guess from a Meltwater perspective, before COVID-19, digitization for companies was all talk but no action. But since then, we've seen companies sort of dust off digital plans and put them into action. And I always look at budgets when it comes to marketing. What trends are we seeing here? And there was a study done by McKinsey & Company where they spoke about an increase of up to 20% in relocation of marketing budgets to accommodate software technology and data analytics to inform business strategy. So I guess from an African perspective,
technology innovation has seen the most development. And I'm not surprised because we have always had the talent and potential to create homegrown innovators. Now, when looking at the data from our software specifically, the number of social media conversations and news articles about digital transformation this year alone, in Kenya specifically, we're seeing an average of about 230 mentions per day. And what interests us the most, I guess, are the dominant topics that are emerging when people are having conversations around digital transformation in relation to the fourth industrial revolution or in relation to innovation specifically. We are seeing topics like customers, access, investors, partnerships, growth, governments, services, and this paints a big picture. Now, amongst some of these mentions, I just wanted to highlight some dominant technology disruptors, such as Safaricom, that is actually trending in relation to these topics. Now, what this says, compared to the e-commerce landscape, is we're actually seeing something similar as well, where the dominant trending topics amongst all of this is COVID. Now, it's safe to say that COVID did accelerate, obviously, digital transformation, but it's also important to focus on some of the, I guess, improvements in service delivery, or even better, the job creations in Kenya. So I was reading a bit of articles around activity around a few government parastatals on the topic such as digital transformation. And I guess the Ministry of ICT is a good example of digital economy and how they're shaping the future in that regard. The Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning, digital management systems that they've also launched, but also KenGen in the recent COP26 speaking about clean tech innovation. But it is clear that there is an adoption of digital technologies to modify existing business models and processes or even customer experiences. Now, maybe looking on the customer experience side, I've got a more controversial example. A recent one, obviously, by the Kenya Revenue Authority, where they mention that social media listing is improving tax compliance. I'm yet to understand how this is happening, but it's interesting, right? They've created complete transparency in adopting technology for solutions. Or in another example, organizations that have started integrating third-party applications for internal communication, like Slack or Microsoft Teams. And I think just by looking at these examples, it's clear that digital transformation is at the forefront. But the important thing is that Kenya is positioned as the leader and the driver in shaping the space. And I'll be quite interested to hear more on some of the examples the panel have shared as well. So I'll leave it right there. I'll have a few more stats, but I'll touch on that a bit later on.
Well, thank you so much, Sifu. And I think the Kerry one, I think you must have seen a smile on everyone's face because that's been trending, there are memes. And yes, it's increasing compliance, but I think they couldn't have obviously have hoped for such a viral thing to happen when it was announced that they were using social media monitoring tools to understand what's happening in this space. And as something tells me, maybe it is meltwater they're using. But as we say that, I have to obviously, Joseph. Sorry?
Sorry to disturb on that point. I wanted to touch on what Waitera mentioned earlier on in regards to a route to consumer strategy. I think in addition to this, we're also seeing a massive increase of user-generated content, and this is an example of KRA. We also saw it last year in the beginning of COVID relations with Doshi Group, when obviously their hashtag trended, but this was user-generated content that then positioned the brand in a different perspective, but also generated sales for them as well. And I think these are some really interesting use cases or company-specific ones we can draw attention to in Kenya.
Absolutely. I think user-generated content has exploded in the past year and a half. So Joseph Onjohi, again, Safaricom. I always look at Safaricom and I always think of it as our Kenyan Apple or Kenyan Google, because you sit at the center of everything. You connect all that we do, from payments to calls and internet and so forth. But Safaricom is an incredible company, hugely successful. But more importantly, I think you're almost like the connective tissue between all the things that we do in our digital lifestyles. And going into that, I think, looking at your ecosystem, your new ethos or philosophy around seeing yourselves beyond being a telco and becoming a sort of a digital lifestyle enabler. Would you be able to tell us, some of the things and trends that you've seen in the past year, both from an enterprise level and even at a consumer level, and going into the pandemic and beyond, where do we see Safaricom playing a role in creating this better future through this digital transformation?
Thanks, Moses, and it's good to speak after, my customers.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because I have great admiration for the companies that these ladies represent, and they are at the forefront of innovation. So, and we see that firsthand because we interact with all of them on a continuous basis. So, if I had an hour, I can talk about each of them for about an hour and the stuff that we're doing with them. But to your point, I think what COVID did, just reflecting back to March 2019, of course everyone panicked, and all of a sudden we were told to go and work from home, something that we had never done before, and we had to put on our laptops, and some of us who were old school didn't know how to mute, didn't know how to bring the camera on, etc. But I think something fundamental was happening, and in my view, COVID presented for technology the biggest proof of concept of an idea that was going to happen 5 years from now. And it brought it forward and completely disrupted how we interact. So Safaricom, we see ourselves as an enabler and a catalyst. So we, as you correctly put it, we are at the foundation of the digital ecosystems. And we are immensely grateful to Kenyans, because the success that Safaricom has had would never have happened without Kenyans. And Kenyans are the ones who keep provoking us to think. Sometimes the kick has had, I remember a couple of years ago, EABL came and told us, what do you mean we cannot transact using M-Pesa? And we gave them 5 reasons as to why it can't happen. And the kick kept kicking us until we innovated. So Kenyans have been good to us. They've pushed us to innovate. So some of the shifts that we are seeing, one of the shifts is how people work. Increasingly, work has stopped being a place. It has become a space. That space could be in your car, but please don't try it unless you're being driven. It could be in your home. It could be on the beach. And employers are increasingly saying you can be productive where you are. The challenge, of course, for employers is how do you balance organization culture, ensuring that you're keeping the same culture and at the same time you're giving your staff the ability to work from wherever they would want to work from and become more productive. I know people who have moved to Rongai, to Kitengela, and they've created a good environment for their families, and we enable that by doing home connections. And I think we've more than doubled our home connections over the last year. I think we stand about 153,000.
Wait, hang on. Fiber to the home doubled? Fiber
to the home, yes. About 153,000 homes connected to fiber, which tells you there's work happening at home and people are being productive while they're at home. The second part is education. And I think one of the biggest disruptions that happened in the initial days was education. And what was happening is that all of a sudden kids are at home, the parent is at home, the kid is not learning, they're trying to figure out how they're going to spend their time. And again, Kenyans came and told us, schools, why don't you come up with packages that can support education, that are subsidized? So came up with education passes for data, and we price them at about 1/3 of the normal price for data. And over that period, we enabled about 150,000 students access education while they were at home. And the interesting thing, Moses, is that we thought that the need would disappear as people went back to school. The interesting thing is that the need is still there, because they're saying even when they're on holiday, Universities sometimes they want to ensure that people when they're out of semester they can still participate in active learning. So I think that is another trend I think that is here to stay. And then lastly, when it comes to payments, sometimes the statistics, are difficult to write. It's a long time since I figured out how to try to write a trillion. So the value of transactions over the last year growing from about 9 trillion to 13 trillion. And it's Kenyans doing transactions. Yeah, all of us.
Peer-to-peer?
Sorry?
Like person-to-person?
Person-to-person, business-to-business.
Okay.
Cumulative total transactions at about 13.7 trillion, which tells you the economy is significantly shifting to online digital payments. And if you look further ahead, you can only see that accelerating into the future. And we look at the M-Pesa ecosystem in two. So you have consumers and then you have businesses. So we see growth in terms of customers at about 28.7 million. And then you have businesses at about 400,000 businesses that are transacting. Now remember, at the end of the day, you're either paying you a debt I owed, or I am transacting with EABL by buying their products. So you find that ecosystem continues to grow and mature, and it feeds onto each other. The other thing that we are proud and that we have done is enabling APIs for developers to come and create digital channels, and about 30,000 of them who interact with our M-Pesa platform on a continuous basis. And it's young people, and they're able to start up a business from their bedroom, etc. So immensely grateful to Kenyans. These trends, we see them staying into the long term.
Do you have any data points around, because one of the things that I kind of like, again, I mentioned I really love data, but just understanding, can I call it data consumption, if I can use that phrase, because streaming, YouTubing, Zooming, do you have any indicators around that shift from maybe more static content to rich content, like videos and audio? Are you seeing some interesting trends around that as well?
May not have the exact statistics in terms of how much more consumption of YouTube you are seeing. But what I can tell you when I talk to my technology guys, they say over the last year, the amount of data traffic has doubled.
On a sort of per user basis? Across the whole thing?
I'm not too sure about the exact volume of data growth, but I mean the data volume, but the data growth has more or less than doubled. Yeah, that's the sense I can get. Yeah.
And are you also in a position maybe to comment a little bit about 5G? I know Shaka mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can tell us, because we're talking about a better tomorrow?
Yeah, 5G is interesting, but you have to be careful with 5G. You have to ensure that you can monetize 5G, because 5G tends to be very niche to right now to business environments, whereby you could require real-time communication. For example, if you're driving you have a driverless car and it needs to continuously communicate. That microsecond could mean an accident. So that's why 5G comes in and is very important. But for you and me, 5G may not make that much of a difference right now, because 4G right now gives you speeds of over 40 Mbps. So you're able to get very good quality. However, having said that, increasingly, we're already doing trials on 5G. We have some base stations which have 5G capability. We want to do about 200 sites on 5G over the next 1 year. And it will grow organically. We're already talking to businesses that are already seeing some need, campus connectivity for 5G. And because with 5G, you can put a portion of 5G specifically to a campus, say a university, a port in Mombasa, where you can completely automate the operations of the port using 5G. Yes, so that transition will happen. By my honest opinion, in the African context, 4G is already delivering incredible service for ordinary day use. But yes, industrial use for 5G definitely will come up.
Sorry, I need to ask this as well, because when I think we talk about 5G, one of the things that I think is going to be a big challenge to adoption is the handsets, right? Because I think currently the handsets that support 5G tend to be quite expensive. So it'd be good to hear maybe what Safaricom plans to do in terms of maybe creating affordable or sourcing affordable 5G capable devices, whether it's at the phone level or dongles that you can use. Anything you can comment in that context?
Yeah, that's a good question, Moses. And we're already having conversations with the manufacturers of consumer endpoint devices, whether they are routers, whether there is the devices. And we're trying to ensure that the price point when we go commercial on 5G is affordable to and it's not a new thing. We did that with 2G, we've done that with 3G, we've done that with 4G, where in some instances we partner with manufacturers and come up with a device of below 5,000 shillings that is a smartphone that ordinary Kenyans can be able to afford. So the same thing will happen with 5G. Right now, when you look at the CPEs for 5G, ranging in the region of about 50,000 thereabout. Yeah. But a sweet spot for me would be somewhere below 20,000 shillings. That's when you start making sense for the ordinary Kenyan to use 5G. Yeah. So and again, remember economies of scale. As 5G matures globally, the cost of production will go lower, and then the devices will become more affordable over time.
Okay, great. So I'd like to take a second pass with our panelists, starting with Idera. I had a number of questions which I shared with you guys, but I just wanted to find out maybe if, from your perspective, if there's maybe three shifts that you think are going to come in the next normal. I think right now the conversation is moving from the new to the next. Given your experience and your exposure to EABL and what you guys are doing there in terms of innovation, are there two or three things that come to mind in terms of the next normal? And I think this is where we're sort of future casting. We're looking 2 to 5 years away. What does this look like? Because I think the new normal is now established. So what's the next thing from here?
Is my mic working? Yeah, it is. Okay. So I know we've been talking about, there's this term we tend to use very loosely, data-driven. And I think if we really, really want to see a shift in our businesses, we really, really need to understand what that is. Being data-driven. So one of the shifts that one of the key initiatives that we've been taking is how do we collect data that can make sense for us to make business decisions. If you look at media, we know that the cookie story that's going to disappear in a few years. And I think that's one of the reasons we decided to even build our own D2C platform to understand the consumer. And to grow a database of, past 4-week drinkers and understand how we connect with them in the various different moments. From a B2B perspective, we've recently launched a B2B platform called Diageo One that allows our distributors and outlets to order online what they need. So it's a hybrid situation where the salesperson will still visit the outlet, but the outlet is empowered to still order online and get what they need. The truck will still come to their bar. And in that sense, they're able to go in, they get more information about what the offers are available. And for us, we're able to understand what is selling well in a particular region or in a particular outlet and be able to support them better. So what we're seeing is we marry that B2B data and the consumer data, and then what do we do with that? There's an initiative we partnered with Safaricom actually before the pandemic on connected coolers, connected fridges, which is quite interesting because I wasn't part of that project, but the commercial team was. What they were telling me is they're able to understand. So we provide fridges for free to all our outlets to ensure that our product is served at the right temperature, our beers, and the fridge should be at 3 degrees. So obviously there were issues with understanding when we do trade visits, the fridge is off, the beer is not cold enough, it's not set up properly in terms of the minimum product assortment. And that initiative allowed us to get all that data to the point of how many times the fridge was being opened. So you can actually understand this fridge in this region. It just speaks to performance. You can understand why a certain outlet is performing well because you look at that data. The beers are cold enough, the fridge is being opened enough. And so that's how we will marry that. So I think that's one area where let's not just talk about being data-driven. How are we actually using that data to drive the next thing or make business decisions?
And I think the question of data becomes kind of interesting from a privacy standpoint as well, because Kenya, of course, has its own new privacy law, I think. And I don't know, again, given that you're also probably capturing consumer data, is there any comment you might have around, the privacy aspect of this?
So we adhere to, I think, the highest standards as Diageo of data privacy laws, and we also ensure that our partners and vendors also are compliant to that standard, to the point where even all our sites have to be hosted on Diageo. We do not allow third-party hosting in that sense. So we take it quite seriously from that point of view. We do not do any remarketing on data where it's not permission-based. The basics, it's there. But at the highest standards, especially when you're collecting PII, personal identifiable information, even to the point of, do you really need to be collecting that information? So yeah, it's quite stringent there.
One more question, maybe. I think in terms of, again, next practices and the next normal, I know that, EABL is a major user of digital for marketing. And I don't know if you have any comments on that as well, just in terms of, how's that changed in the last year and, what sort of practices are you now adopting from an advertising standpoint to reach consumers on social media, on platforms like Google and so forth?
Well, we have quite a diverse media mix. We still use a lot of traditional media. We understand the power of TV and regional radio stations. I think Citizen is one of the major media houses we work with. For us in the alcohol industry, we are subjected to watershed. So it does restrict when we can connect with our consumers because we can only go on TV after 10 p.m. So if you watch Citizen after 10 p.m., all you will see is EABL ads. No, but it also forced us to sort of innovate in that sense from a programming perspective. I don't know if you guys have watched Singleton Stories, which is actually a creation of our media agency who said, let's put together a program and then go to Citizen and have them air it. Which was actually a very successful show, which we also run on YouTube as well. So it was both, which is interesting. But from a media perspective, our media selection is actually based on ROI. And we have a very interesting tool at EABL called Marketing Catalyst that measures marketing effectiveness. So you actually can measure your ROI, which is great for our finance team, because they always tell me, where is that money going? And I tell them, look, this is where it's going, because for every dollar we spend on a particular media, so it tracks for all our media, it'll tell you the resultant incremental sales. So it's a tool we've had since 2018, and now it's so precise because we've been feeding it data all this time, sales data, seasonal data. And we also put in our media plans in there. It even helps us optimize our media plans, telling us this is when you should be spending more, spending less. And so over time, that data is so accurate that we're able to make our decisions on where we should place our media, because it gives us an ROI. Right now, our highest ROI is on out-of-home, just because we're not restricted. And secondly, it's on social media. So social media is one of our most efficient media platforms because of cost and ROI. So what we're doing is from a technology point of view, recently we've started using DV360 for media placement, because it allows us, and double verify as well. Double verify helps us with combating ad fraud. So is our ad being seen by real people, not bots? Viewability, what percentage of the ad loads in the first, I think, 1 second. which has got an issue with your connectivity as well. And the third one is around brand safety, where our ads even showing up. Because from our reputation point of view, you don't want your ads in certain spaces. So we've implemented those to help us with our ad placement. Yeah.
Great, thanks so much. It seems to me that data is at the heart of everything you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Faith, future casting, looking forward 2 to 5 years. What do you see as the coming trends? What's next? And more importantly, what role does Cellulant see itself playing in that new future?
Sorry, I think that's a very good question. And as I was listening to her speak, some of the thoughts that were coming to mind is that as we look into the future, how we look at leadership has to change. How we look at our organizations has to change. It's a softer issue, easily ignored, but I think in Africa, I think it's one of those things that if we don't put together properly, then we stand to lose. I was reading an article the other day, and it was explaining how up to 60% of the organizations globally had to shift their type of leaders to be able to just be aligned to the new normal. Because the new normal means you have to lead innovatively. It means you're leading people who you can't see per se. It means you have to be future ready. I love her title, like you just have to be future ready. You have to be decisive. Perhaps not those days where you would take 100 days to think about something and then implement it. The cycles are becoming shorter. So to start off, when I think about the future, even for Cellulant, I think just leadership is key. And I think we've taken those sort of bold steps as Cellulant. And the other thing that comes to mind, again, a report I read, I think it was by MasterCard, and it was saying 4 out of 5 Kenyans are now inclined to shop online or are shopping online more than before. And what does that mean? It means that any business that wants perhaps to do well in the new normal, in the years to come, you have to have a way of ensuring that you're online ready. That means certain things for, of course, merchants. It means certain things for banks, and even more so for us as the payment businesses to be able to offer those sort of, seamless payment solutions, and maybe not just seamless, but real time, so that it's no longer that there's a whole queue because you're waiting for someone to get an SMS. If you're providing that sort of thing, then you'll be out of the way, and people will be looking for more real time sort of payments. And the other thing that I would caringly say that I see in the future is that, and this is hard for me to say because I'm previously a banker, but I think if banks would need to think different if they'll exist in the next 5 years. And we've seen it already. Half of the things that banks can do, telcos are able to do now. Before they couldn't do lending, we're doing it now. The other day we were in a meeting and we were talking about Fuliza, and we were saying now, how Fuliza has the certain rules of how you can, I think you can only send to someone or something like that. Now when you go to an agent, they've already innovated, that they give you a number if you need to send to someone because you need to withdraw cash, because I don't think you can withdraw Fuliza. So it's just gonna keep growing. So soon perhaps these agents will be able to do more. And so brick and mortar won't cut it for banks anymore, or just doing the traditional current account, and the lending space. It'll have to be totally innovative, where perhaps the banks become fintechs themselves, partner with us, I selfishly say, even more to be able to be relevant in the future. And it's catching up on super fast. Before I'd have probably said in the next 5 to 8 years. Now I dare say to 2 to 3 years. And that's even like too far, So I think that's a big deal. And then finally, I think, and even more importantly, I think this thing that we call APM, alternative payment methods, will become even bigger. We've seen it in Europe, we've seen it in the Americas, and I think some of those things are properly placed out there, and now they're easily injecting money here because I think Africa is a blue ocean. So we're seeing a lot of these people coming in. You're seeing, you know, we are on Series D, for example. A lot of these global companies are buying into the payment companies that we have locally. So we'll see a lot more of that injection into Africa and into Kenya. I feel like Kenya is a hub as well. But I think even more so, even more alternative payment methods. One of the alternative payment methods that we are seeing becoming popular, if banks move quickly enough, is bank as a payment method. You know, so that hopefully you'd be able to walk into a supermarket and I can, you know, transact from bank X to bank Y, you know. No offense, Wanjohi, but yeah, you know, those are some of the examples that we are beginning to see happen. You know, tomorrow, Faith wants to pay her service charge, for example, and I don't want to have to write down that long account number, then Sijui house number, and things like that, you know. And so we are solutioning for some of those things where you can pay by a smart link, and that link is able to give you all these details, so you don't have to write them down. It even reminds you if it's like your gym subscription, for example. And so that's where the world is going, where really customer is king. The customer says, I don't want to remember that long account number, and it's up to us to be able to do that, you know, and just come up with those solutions. I beg to give an example of what we're doing with Viusasa, for example. One of the things that I'm super excited about, and it's to do with biller aggregation, you know, and I think that's the future, where tomorrow any app, whether it's like the app Kina Enjoy have or what you have with Viusasa, that we're able to come in as the payment leaders and make that app a super app, so that when I get into that app, I'm not only able to view content. Now with Viusasa, you can pay for KPLC, you can buy airtime, and we're powering that. And I think that's the future. Just easing that for customers, and I call it wow your customer, and you know, and then I guess obsessing with these customers and just finding out what really are they looking for. And I think our competitors and our friends as well have done this very well, and I think that's the future, because the customer is ruling. They want to shop online, they want convenience without shopping, they don't want to leave their living rooms, and so just being able to do that. And finally, Moses, I think one of the things that I don't like to talk about, but I'll talk about anyway, I think digital lending. I know we've seen it with the Talas coming into the market, Fuliza as well, and many others, but I think we haven't seen it all. I think digital lending will also be a big deal in the future, where, you know, you'll be able to walk to the place where you buy your shoes, whether online or offline, and when you're in that shop, if the shoe is 15,000 and I only have 10,000, I'll be able to get a buy now, pay later sort of solution, which is scary for us, but I guess it's good for money to move and our economy to grow and aspects like that. So yeah, that's how I see it, Moses.
You know, you've just exploded my mind in terms of payments in so many different ways, so many different scenarios. And I think, to quote what you're saying about banking, I think it was Bill Gates who said, you know, banking is necessary, banks are not. And, you know, I think that future is so real. You know, people are looking for the utility, but not necessarily a bank. But as we talk about payments, I think I have to touch on one that lately is sort of consuming my brain space, which is this whole crypto space.
Yes.
The other day I was reading about a company called Binance, which is also huge in Kenya. And these guys apparently don't have a head office. They've got 3,000 employees. Nobody knows where the head office is.
Yes.
And on a daily basis, they're transacting $76 billion in transactions. They're bigger by, I think, a margin of 2 or 3 times the next competitor as a crypto exchange. So I know that there's some unregulated aspects in Kenya. I know that Central Bank of Kenya in the past hasn't particularly endorsed crypto.
Yes.
But do you want to say anything about crypto and possibly the context of crypto in Kenya and payments?
Sure.
Because if you talk to the young guys,
Yeah.
those Binance users in Kenya and other platforms, it seems to be a way of life for them to make more money. Yeah, they play with crypto trading and so forth, but with the Bitcoins and Ethereum. But do you want to say anything about crypto?
Sure. You know, it's interesting. I was working for Oracle when I first heard of crypto. And it's interesting how the global space is so open to it already, you know. And of course, I first heard about it in line with blockchain. And then, of course, then now you hear about crypto. And genuinely, I think, like we just need to catch up. People are being paid through crypto. So soon we'll have these millennials going like, I don't want you to give me shares. I don't want you to pay me, in the Kenya shillings. I want you to pay me with crypto. Then what does that mean? If I have a crypto wallet, then when I go to a shop, that's how I'd want to be paid. So I genuinely think it's not even a question we should be asking. We should probably just be having meetings to ask how do we do this? How do we make sure it's secure? How do we make sure our businesses are resilient enough to be able to handle this sort of new age technology? Because you can only imagine with the advent of this sort of new technologies means hackers are on steroids as well, so it's no longer just security, it's just that cyber resilience, so to speak, or just resilience of our businesses to just make sure tomorrow if I want to pay my customers, or collect money through crypto, what sort of platforms am I putting in place? And, I want to be a typical Kenyan and say, it's a call to the government, but I'll stop myself and say it's a call to each and every one of us in this room, that as you're thinking about your strategy, next 2 3 years, do you want to think about that? Let's not wait for another pandemic to wake us up, into getting into the digital space and aspects like that. But I think it's here. Kenyans are transacting. Kenyans are saving. I know of people who have more savings with crypto than with, normal currency as we speak. And if you look at even our economy and just the things happening in Africa and the various central banks and how our currencies are shifting and all that, crypto will just come in to bring that balance. So scaringly, and if not us, our children will push us to do it. So let's learn it and figure out how to make use of it. Yeah.
Thank you. That was really great. Caroline, there's something I was discussing with Waidera quite recently. We had a wonderful conversation on a podcast. And I think it's appropriate to bring it up in the context of rural media services and, of course, Citizen Digital. There seems to be a significant convergence happening around the idea of content and commerce working hand in hand. And I think to some sense you've alluded to that, Faith, when you talked about how you're now able to put the hooks for commerce into the ViewSasa app. So for me, I don't know, maybe you can talk a little bit about that as well as looking at other future trends, Caroline, around the trend which we're seeing globally where actually media houses are buying retail businesses are buying content platforms, and what they're doing is they're putting the content at the front of the engagement with the consumer, and then they're creating the hooks so that the call to action to buy something is actually coming from their own inventory, from their own platforms, or working with third parties. So I don't know that you can say anything about that, because it seems to be a future trend that content and commerce are now becoming one and the same. And I think that's sort of going to change the media landscape, because what that means then is that a retailer potentially or a manufacturer will say, why am I buying media when I can be the media? Why am I just the media when I can sell the iPhone? And I don't know whether you have any thoughts or perspectives around that, given that you're already doing the commerce content connection with Cellulant. Yeah.
Thank you, Moses. And as you've explained, that is the trend currently we're experiencing. Moving away and shifting from traditional methods of pushing product to our audiences as plain commercials, and embedding now advertising messaging into interesting content, like Waidera alluded to earlier with the Singleton series, and a lot more that we are doing with partners across. And so innovation is playing hard into that space, and we are likely to see a very huge innovation wave as concerns how we are delivering content to our consumers, durations, style, genres, and how we end up embedding partnerships with commercial partners who we need to continue thriving. I think of Coca-Cola, the ad that is currently running that is very different from the ordinary train that we were used to seeing at this time of year. We are seeing partnerships with gaming, famous gaming personalities from online coming into this content space. And thank you for raising the issue of ViewSasa partnership with Cellulant, because as we continued in our journey on the transformation of ViewSasa and understanding what our consumers really required, we realized that they want an environment where everything comes into play. So that convenience is very critical, that they're enjoying content, they are downloading and accessing their news. There's a shopping element close by within the same environment. There is information on education and tenders and other offerings available to them. So we will keep listening and we will keep finding ways to create that very critical convenience across industries. Yeah. The second shift I thought about was on the rescaling of resources, because we're undergoing that currently in our space. Well, traditionally, you'd require a cameraman and a reporter to go out to find a story, maybe multiple teams of people. And with the current space that we are getting into, one person is sufficient to go out with the right equipment, carry their own stories, report and edit their stories and transmit it directly into where they're required for immediacy. So what does that mean then for these other resources that used to edit stories, used to carry the heavy cameras that were traditionally linked to news gathering? So as opposed to thinking of how we can cut down numbers and lay off, because that's immediate solution that would seem promising, we are thinking futuristic. It's important to cast further ahead and see what will our space require, whatever space we're in 5 years from now, and start reskilling those particular people as opposed to laying off right away. We are currently working with our correspondents across the country who are radio correspondents, doing just that one task of gathering news for radio, to now equip them with modern day cameras, which can be as light as our phones, and they became instant TV journalists, and now increasing the content that is much needed on our digital platforms. So that sort of thinking that does not just act on immediate solutions, but is forecasting ahead to see what needs will there be 3, 4, 5 years from now. The other thing I thought about was there'll be a great need to increase investment in digital transformation tools. Well, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 years for us ago, the digital tools that went into research or AI, artificial intelligence in terms of storytelling were not a priority. That's an area that I think we will begin to see a lot of growth in. And it will be interesting to see how we all adapt from this space into partnerships with those sort of software companies, and how we also help to innovate, our own technology in that space.
I think I love the thing you talked about, reskilling, and I call them hybrids, right? Especially I think they came with the millennial wave, where somebody could be a designer, they could be a photographer, they could be a poet, they could also be a chemical engineer. And for me, it's just wonderful when I look at the young people today and the diverse skill sets they had. And also, more importantly, because they grew up digital, many of these things come to them naturally, unlike some of us, where we sort of, I think we're called the immigrants versus the natives of the digital landscape. But it's wonderful the way you're able to tap into that phenomena where these young people are able to do multiple things, and therefore instead of them losing a job, they simply put what they already know to work. I think that's fantastic. And then using lower cost devices and technologies which now are producing TV quality, you can do on an iPhone, and can sort of become a remote reporter, as it were. I think we'll move to Joseph, and hopefully we'll get to Sifo. Futurescaping, what's next, what's coming forward? What do we hope for the future from Safaricom? And I'm very excited to hear what you might have to say.
Okay, I think Moses, the first, probably just give some feedback on the volume of data that goes through our network per day. I think that's an important statistic that you'd want to know.
Okay.
It's actually 1.8 petabytes per day. So for context,
how many zeros from a trillion?
For context, it's 1 petabyte is 1 billion bytes. So you can imagine that the amount of content that is going on, and as I mentioned earlier, it actually has doubled since COVID started. So the shift that we have had is permanent, in my view. I think to your question about what do we expect, going forward from Safaricom, I think Shaka alluded to it when he was reading the speech, is enabling ecosystems. And we're going to focus on a couple of them. The first one, the thing is that we're really passionate about because of its transformative nature is agriculture. And the whole idea of how do we ensure that our relatives who are in the village and they have a quarter acre of land, half an acre of land, can have meaningful productivity and get income from their pieces of land. Because, as you know, for a very long time, exploitation by the middlemen, and at the end of the day, there is no meaningful profitable venture for our farmers. So that's one area that we believe that using technology we can significantly transform agriculture. The other is education, and we, beyond providing data passes for education, is how do we partner with like-minded people to provide good quality, affordable connectivity across Kenya. And I think you're seeing certain initiatives from UNICEF, etc., that are taking internet to far-flung areas. You know, one of the things that we have to watch out for is that there is no discrimination in terms of technology, because our kids in schools in Nairobi can be able to get access to connectivity. That may not be the case in Lamu, in Mandera, in Moyale, but you want to ensure that all our kids have the same opportunities going forward. So there are great initiatives happening in government, UNICEF, and we've participated to some extent in providing connectivity to schools. So education will remain extremely important. The other one is just enabling the gig economy. Young people, you know, leaving school, limited opportunities for employment, and to your point, how can they be a poet? How can they be, you know, a saxophonist in the evening? And how can they be a chemical engineer? How do you ensure that they're able to engage their customers and partners, and also, more importantly, also receive payment? Because M-Pesa becomes a fantastic tool for receiving payment for work done. So you'll continue to see us deeply engaging in certain ecosystem to ensure that we are building an economy that is sustainable going forward and diversifying from the traditional play of certain, you know, sectors only, but ensuring that everybody has an equal opportunity for growth. So creating that opportunity, equal opportunity for all Kenyans remain important. Because at the end of the day, as I said earlier, Kenyans have been extremely good to us. The only thing we can do is ensure that we pay back that trust by empowering and enabling Kenyans to in the digital future. Thanks.
I have to say this because I don't even know how we didn't touch on this, but the M-Pesa app, I'm such a complete convert, it's scary. You know, I no longer use the USSD, and it's so intuitive because it knows my frequent payments and so forth. But I think we must give credit where credit is due. I mean, that was really well done. And, you know, I'm an iPhone user, so thank you for remembering us. But more importantly, it works really, really well, and we are very happy to use it. So good job there, especially the UX team. I don't know to be able to have any time for Sifo to join us from South Africa with his parting comments on the future. Not possible? Okay. Unfortunately, it seems that we're out of time. Thank you very much to our panelists. It's been wonderful. Thank you for sharing your insights and your perspectives and the future that we can hope will be better. And eagerly looking forward to engaging with you, and hopefully, please feel free to engage with our audience as you're still around. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kemibaro, for that discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, the panel the topic was scaling your business with digital payments. Now, I'd like to quickly jump to our guest of honor. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please give a warm welcome as we recognize the Honorable Gloria Kipngetich, Assistant Secretary of the Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, please give her a warm round of applause as she comes up to deliver her keynote speech as we continue the program. Welcome, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Gloria Chepngetich, Assistant Secretary, Ministry of ICT. I'm here on behalf of my boss, Madam Lucy Mulili, Secretary Administration. My sincere apologies from my boss, Honorable Joe Musheru, who could not be here today. I beg you, I'll be straight to the speech. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me great joy to be here today to celebrate the 6th edition of the Social Media Week and the launch of the Digital and Technology Week. Today, we celebrate and acknowledge the undeniable role of technology in Kenya. I commend Gogaga Experiential for putting together such a valuable and inclusive conference covering such a broad range of digital and technology in various industries. The Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs is working to ensure that Kenya becomes a transformed society where every citizen will access to basic needs, create opportunities, and living fulfilled lives enabled by technology. The theme for this year is reinvention, reimagining digital for a better tomorrow. This is such a critical subject for discussion, especially at a time when the COVID-19 pandemic has changed basically every aspect of our lives. This year's edition is particularly unique and intentional in that it's not just another technology event, simply focusing on the social aspect of tech, but rather one that covers the various sectors of the economy. This broad scope has inspired the launch of the Digital and Technology Week, which is now replacing the annual Social Media Week. The ministry has played a major role in the digital transformation of this country in the line with our mission, which is to facilitate universal access to ICT, infrastructure and services, and to empower youth for national development. This is to acknowledge ICT and innovation as the key avenues for creating jobs through outsourcing of ICT services, promoting of innovative ideas to enable a more advanced economy, capacity building, as well the overall social economic development of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Kenya Economic Blueprint, the Vision 2030, the government aims at transforming the country into a newly industrialized middle-income economy, providing a high quality of life to all its citizens in a clean and secure environment. ICT is a critical tool in Kenya's vision on a knowledge-based economy, which aims at shifting the current industrial development path towards innovation. The ministry has developed a number of projects to drive the development of digital in Kenya, such as the Digital Literacy Program, Presidential Digital Talent Program, the Ajira Digital Program, the Constituency Digital Innovation Hubs, and frameworks such as the Digital Economy Blueprint for Africa, the National Broadband Strategy, the National ICT Master Plan, and the ICT Strategic Plan, aimed at transforming the use of ICT to spur economic growth in the country. This is a move aimed at increasing the level of innovation and to position Kenya as a digital leader in Africa. With this framework in place and a joint common effort from all stakeholders, we shall achieve the goal of making Kenya a competitive, knowledge-based economy. Ladies and gentlemen, with majority of Kenyans being the youth who are considered the pillars of the economy, of the country, it could be wrong to ignore their well-being. That is why the government has put in place the necessary infrastructure to provide youth with opportunities for digital jobs through projects such as Ajira Digital Program, which provides the tools, training, and mentorship needed for young people to work and earn an income through online work. It is an opportunity for youth to earn a decent working on a digitally enabled work opportunities that include data entry management, virtual assistance, transcription, digital marketing, and e-commerce, and writing and translation that includes articles and news, editing and proofreading, web content, industry-specific expertise, books, research, blogs, and writings. And you can get more details on this program through the website ajiradigital.go.ke. The next generation is growing up in a digital world. Online work is the future of work, and therefore, it's in the heart of the ministry to invest in the younger generation as they hold the promise for a better transformed nation. Kenya has been blessed with two things: great mind and a rich economy. But it is in our abilities to allow ourselves to imagine and dream more, to think outside the box, and challenge ourselves to build back better. That will enable us to win the future. I believe that we are all present here today and joining us virtually because we shall share a similar belief that technology is the new home. It is in that shared belief that a sense of urgency that has caused a shift to adapting technology in every sphere of influence. It could be in ensuring competitive advantage of our businesses, or by using computers to educate the young generation, or even maintaining human connections, especially at a time when the pandemic has affected our interactions. Technology is present in every sector of our economy and is a major determining factor of how competitive our economy will be. The secret to getting ahead after the effects of pandemic is to re-strategize. That is why we are all here today. I look forward to fruitful discussion as we reinvent and reimagine digital and technology for a better tomorrow. In the words of former President Barack Obama, I quote, "Live in the world as it is, but you will still create the world as it should be." With those many remarks, it's now my humble pleasure to declare the 6th edition of the Social Media Week, Nairobi, which is now Digital Technology Week, officially open. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Gloria Chepngetich, the Assistant Secretary for the Ministry of ICT, Innovation, and Youth Affairs. Now, as you know, This is the 6th edition, just as she mentioned, and I'd like to encourage everyone to share the word and spread it that we are streaming live on Citizen Digital, which is, of course, up and running, doing very well. So please send those messages out, get everybody involved so that they don't miss out if they're not able to right now. As we come to the close of this, I'd like to call up, of course, Mr. Joseph Wanjohi, the head of department, yes, of large enterprises and public sales from Safaricom to give the vote of thanks. Welcome, sir. Give him a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much, and I just want to thank all of us for braving the early morning to be here on time. We hope that you have enjoyed yourselves and you have learned something, and that you will take something from this session. Thank you, Bwana MC, for a very good job done. So I just want to thank our moderator, Mr. Moses Kemibaro, founder and CEO of .Savi Limited, for moderating the session that we had this morning. Thank you very much, Bwana Kemibaro. Thank you, of course, to Bwana Shaka Kwach from Safaricom for representing Bwana Chris Senanu this morning and just setting the ball rolling. My fellow, first of all, let me, of course, recognize Madam Gloria Chepngetich, Assistant Secretary, Ministry of ICT, Youth Affairs. Thank you so much for ably representing the CS, and we are honored to have had you this morning. My fellow panelists, Wedera Kabiru from EABL, Caroline Washira from Citizen TV, Citizen Media Group, and of course, Faith Nkata, Country Manager Cellulant. We are grateful that you made it this morning to join us for a very engaging session. And of course, lastly, Mr. If I pronounce this wrong, you'll apologize on my behalf. Sifesel Hlela, Director of Diversity at Meltwater in South Africa. So thank you very much for gracing us with your presence this morning. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And as we come to the close of this, I'd like to just thank everybody for taking time out once again to be here. I'd like to take this opportunity one more time, our sponsors. And of course, we have Safaricom. Thank you so much. A round of applause. Amazing job so far. Of course, also contributing greatly to the panel discussion that we just had. We've also got the Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs, who are here with us in, that we have Citizen Digital, of course, behind Royal Media Services, Turn Left Media, Cellulant, Wowsy, Nestle, EABL. We've got Kennick, Oracle, Meltwater, Institute of Human Resource Management. We've got Kenya Institute of Bankers, and Digital Media Awards. Remember the hashtags on social media, hashtag MW and digital, hashtag Digital and Technology Week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending the opening ceremony, as you have all graced it and braved the early morning, just as Mr. Wanjohi said. I'd like to also take this opportunity to just share a slight thought based on the panel discussion, and I had to write it down because it's something that came out as so profound, just as we were mingling or mentioning things between ourselves. And this is what was said. This is the perfect platform that has created a melting pot of great minds that are definitely and surely guaranteed to re-image digital and technology as we look forward to a better tomorrow. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to encourage everyone to pay attention. Of course, we have a coffee break, so there's refreshments. But once again, thank you so much for attending the opening ceremony of the Social Media Week, of course, now morphing into the Digital Media Week 2021, the 6th edition in Nairobi. Thank you, and do have a great morning.
My name is Peter Masharya Karyoki. I'm in the business of selling LPG. I realized the lower class was not being able to access LPG because of the cost. And when we were able to provide cylinders that were not very expensive, then the market was able to take it up. We have a fleet of trucks we have to keep in contact with our drivers. Previously,